right. So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. And that will start out with our land acknowledgement statement. The town of Coalhurst is located in traditional Blackfoot Confederacy territory. We honor the Blackfoot people and their traditional ways of knowing and caring for this land, as well as all Indigenous peoples who have helped shape and continue to strengthen our community. Then we'll move right down to the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Great.
I'll move the council adopt the agenda of the regular meeting of council on April 4th, 2023 as presented.
Excellent. Any discussion? Seeing none, a couple questions. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the adoption of the previous minutes. Can I get a motion for that? Go ahead.
I move that council approve the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on March 21st, 2023.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And I believe we're just waiting for our first delegation, which will be our getting a constituency update from MLA Joseph Scow. But as we're waiting, we'll just can I get a motion to go into recess as we do that?
I move that we take a recess until Scow's ready.
Excellent. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried.
I can hear you, yes. I can even see me on the TV in the back there. Here we go. Sounds good.
All right, can I get a motion to go back into open session at 6:06 PM?
Sure, I'll make that motion. I move to end recess and resume open session at 6:06 p.m.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. All right, well, as for our first delegation, so today we have MLA Joseph Scow with us on Zoom. And so we're really excited to see you. And I'll just turn it right over to you.
Well, thank you for that. I see you have new council chambers. Is this true?
I think it's been like this since, was it before COVID?
It was the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, so it's been like this for a while.
Okay. I think last time I met with council, it was under different circumstances, but I'm honored and pleased to be with you this evening, and very grateful for the invitation. I do apologize about the circumstances of being remote. As you can tell, I'm in my vehicle, and I'm on the road, which is not uncommon for me, but I always do prefer the in-person, but it's not always possible. So thank you for also allowing me to reschedule from last time with the conflict that came up. And but I want to start by saying I am very grateful for all the work you do as a municipal council. I've said this before to other councils, but having such a large constituency, it is sometimes difficult to get out to everybody and build those relationships with your constituents. And we do what we can, but there are limitations. As a municipal council, you have the unique benefit of being so close to your constituents and knowing them very well. And I'm envious because I do love the relationship side of politics and getting to know people and help them with their problems. And so, but I also know it comes with its own set of challenges municipally, and I'm grateful for the work you do. It takes a lot to put your name on a ballot and be elected. So thank you. I will also follow up by saying you sure scored big with Caroline. I've known her for a little bit now, and she is amazing. So I'm glad that she's there, but you must have done something pretty great to snag her up for Lethbridge. So congratulations to her on the new job, and I have to say she's awesome. So good on you for hiring. I don't have a whole lot to really give you from a report standpoint because we just finished our session, and we didn't have the typical large volume of bills that we usually have. We had 3 bills. There was a budget implementation bill, which had a number of pieces in it. We had a red tape reduction bill that was also an omnibus bill, and then the Alberta Firearms Act. And so those 3 pieces of legislation we felt were important to get passed before the election, which will be called in May, and will finish on the 29th of May. So what that means from my perspective, and I guess from yours, from a communication standpoint, is the legislature will dissolve, and I will no longer be the MLA for the time of the writ period. Then after that is over, at the will of the people of Carson Siksika, I'll be the MLA again. And should not be successful, then whoever is next MLA, of course, you'll work with them. But I have high hopes of my success going forward. But in terms of what to expect, I guess I'll get into that because I'm reporting as the MLA. But that's what's happening over the next. We have the next 4 weeks, and then the writ will drop, and then we'll have and the government will dissolve. The one thing that I think is important to chat with you this evening about would be the Coalhurst School. And so I want to ask if it would be appropriate if we could even briefly just go in camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
Sure. I move that we enter closed session at 6:10 p.m.
Thank you. Any discussion of the question? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So I just wanted to go in camera just to be a little more informal and have a discussion. Certainly. This is what I hear. It's exciting times.
should be good.
We're good? Awesome,
Yeah.
great, thank you. So can I get a motion to go back into open session? Go ahead.
Yeah, I move that council returns to open session at 6:24 PM.
Excellent, thank you. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That's carried. Excellent. All right, Emily Scal, I'll turn it back over to you if you have any additional items that you'd like to discuss.
I don't have a whole lot else. I am excited about the Coalhurst School modernization. I think that's a really exciting project coming forward. The resources are there, and as a government, we definitely see the value in putting money and resources into rural Alberta. I'm really pleased that that's happening. I also think it gives Coalhurst an opportunity to continue to attract new residents to the town, and that's good for the town. It's good for the local businesses. So I think that's a really great piece of great news. And in terms of the reporting, talking about a lot of legislation, didn't have a huge session recently, but it is completed 2 weeks ago, or a week ago rather, and we are now still working as your MLA. I'm really enjoying that role, but I'm running for re-election as I've made public, and hopefully continue serving the constituents in Carson 6 Thicket, particularly in Coalhurst, for the coming 4 years.
Great, thank you so much. I'm really excited about the modernization of the school. I think we've got excellent schools out here, and I know that sometimes I hear that people would really like access to the, what do they call them now, like the career
CTS.
CTS, having access to those facilities, and so if that's part of that potential modernization, I think that's really great for our community and our students that we have here.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to you as a council and as mayor. You have been very strong advocates to me, and I'm grateful for your help that you've been with me about the needs of the town, and now you've been willing to challenge me both on and off the record about it. Without that, and without that strong advocacy, this kind of stuff wouldn't be happening, right? You know, as a government, we are reactive in many instances when it comes to need. Like, people come to us and we have to cipher through everything and determine what's, where there's only so many resources, as you know, in council and as municipalities. So without the work you've done, this would not be made possible. So I am a messenger in many instances, and was extremely happy to see this coming through, and happy to advocate throughout the rest of it. But the credit goes to you as a council and as mayor.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And also want to say on record as well, thank you to Coalhurst School Division and the trustees there, and the superintendent. They have been tremendous to work for, and strong advocates for the kids in Coalhurst as well.
They are pretty good.
Yeah. They are pretty good. No bias.
None.
I think we've all made a pretty good team. Thank you for that.
Does anybody have any questions for Emily? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Lawrence.
I was hoping to get an update on the recent announcement for the increased funding for Alberta Sheriffs. About 2 weeks ago, the province announced big additional funds for Alberta Sheriffs and rural crime initiatives. I know that Mike Ellis, the minister, is in Lethbridge tonight. But just, we hear so overwhelmingly much about rural crime and theft in this area. So I was just wondering how that would impact Coalhurst and what we would see here.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely see a need to see more boots on the ground, and so we responded as a government to that in the major cities of Edmonton and Calgary. But we're working with municipalities to determine the need and react accordingly. So I don't want to really reveal too much on behalf of Minister Ellis. He's a very good friend of mine. We served the whips together. He was the chief of, and I was the deputy whip for the first 2 years. So I'm happy to reach out to him and follow the council on that specific, but I wouldn't want to go into too great detail in terms of resources and whether we could go without him talking about it. And of course, not being Lethbridge today, I wasn't able to be with him. But I am happy to follow up with that. But I think from a high level, public safety is so important. We have to be able to feel safe in our homes and feel safe that law enforcement has the resources to respond to people when they need them most, when they're having the worst day of their lives potentially. And so we've done that with the major cities, and they've been very grateful and looking to ensure that it's not just the major cities that get that support. So I will follow up with you on that, but that's probably the most I can give you at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Botry.
Thank you, Mayor Montina. Emily Escow, I wanted to first thank provincial government and Honorable Minister Rebecca Schultz for providing the 2 grants that we recently received, Fire Services Training Program Grant and the Alberta Community Partnership or Municipal Collaboration funding that was through the county. So thank you for again, funding rural Alberta, as you call us. I don't think we're that rural though, but I had a question about if you had a chance to, I guess, speak with Alberta Transportation at all about the intersection out here. If there's any update you could provide the residents of Coalhurst on that.
Yes, I have had a conversation with them, as well as Lethbridge County and with you. I know how important of an issue it is. In terms of long-term plans, I don't have any specific to share with you. But the Minister of Transportation, Deputy Garish, absolutely understands that this is a unique circumstance with that road. A lot of volume of traffic, a lot of speed is always can be a recipe for disaster. And then of course with the train, you involve the train too, it complicates things even more. There are some other factors kind of surrounding the area that are currently being looked at as well. And so I will get more information for you and again follow up. But at the moment, I wouldn't be able to talk a lot in great detail about some of the projects or the kind of things happening that might affect that conversation. But I suspect you're probably aware of some of it. But from a high level perspective, yeah, Coalhurst is only going to keep growing. I mean, that's just the reality. It's a great community, it has great people, and it's close to Lethbridge. Modernized school coming up here, like lots of amenities close by. So I don't see any slowing down on that. And as that happens, more and more people are going to access the community, and that turnoff is a concern for me. As someone, if I can get a little personal, someone who was in a very bad car accident about 2 years ago, it's terrifying. I mean, to have even just a risk of that as a government, if we can help mitigate the risk there, I think we should. And I'm advocating for that. What the solution looks like, I don't know. And that's the issue, because the railroad certainly complicates things. So that's probably where I'll end on that. But no, it is on my mind. The Minister of Transportation is well aware. In terms of municipal affairs, Schultz will be very happy to hear that. She's a good friend of mine. She loves rural Alberta. I had her up for a couple of visits, and we're going to do that again. So I always try to roll the red carpet and shoot something when she comes down. Nothing live, of course, some targets, blow something up. We gotta show these Calgary folk how you do it down in rural Alberta. But always, and of course, I'm getting to blow things up. I never do that. But she does like rural Alberta, and I'm always in her ear about supporting rural Alberta, and she knows it. So.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to that about the highway? So sorry, it's probably a little bit far out, but something that's often the buzz is the a little bit further down across from the Kip Highway on the other side is the casino and resort development. So there's a lot of buzz about that. But if that comes in, we're also going to need some major highway upgrades on that side from who I don't know, from Alberta Transportation or from the feds. But it's something that I would want to maybe ask you about and to keep tabs on in the future as well.
Yeah, and that's some of the stuff that I alluded to before. Where they're at, conversations of that, can't get in great detail, but that definitely changes the conversation. And you made some very good points there. And as the plans get further down the road and those things, ultimately the conversations have to be had about that road and what it looks like and access and egress, all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Councillor Ackermans.
Thank you. Just wanted to say thank you for attending our meeting. First off, I appreciate that. I did have a question with regards to the RCMP contract. I know that's been in the news the last little bit. and they're looking at downloading the cost on the municipalities. So is the UCP government doing anything to help advocate for the rising costs of our CP and for some of that back pay costs? Is there any sort of support or help or anything that you can shed a light to? Because that is quite a burden for municipalities to bear.
Yeah, absolutely. At a very high level, the commitment was that it wasn't going to add any cost to municipalities should they go ahead with it. But in terms of decisions and anything to finalize, nothing to finalize at the moment. And I don't expect anything to finalize anytime soon. We're responding immediately with the demand in the major cities, with the boots on the ground there, and then looking at supporting municipalities as they need help as well. But in terms of the RCMP contracts, the long-term outlooks, not a whole lot new. I know it's come up in the media a couple of times recently. I think it's a little more politics and less policy right now because we're so close to election. And for some people, it is a very hot topic on both sides. So, yeah, nothing's been finalized on that. No final decisions are being made anytime soon on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you. I was grateful to be able to attend the town hall this evening with Minister McEllis, and it was a great session. There was a lot of talk about policing, and I did have a bit of a question about emergency services, and we really didn't have an opportunity to go there. So I will understand if you don't really have a great answer, but I just wanted to put this forward to you if I could. First, I want to say thank you. I don't know what the outcome will be of the election, but I want to say thank you for your service to this area over these past years and the support that you've given us. It's been pretty exceptional.
Thank you. It's kind of you to say.
But there's some conversations in February about, how to eliminate some of the pressure from 911, and there was some conversation about diverting calls from 911 to 811 that were sort of assessed as non-urgent. And did you have any kind of update or information on that for us at all?
Yeah, so they're looking at trying to find ways to reduce the number of ambulances that are being flexed in rural Alberta. I think everyone's familiar with the problem that was, and that is ambulances getting pulled out of rural Alberta into Calgary. And I think for the first time now, we're starting to see ambulances getting pulled out of Calgary to rural Alberta to help. And so we recognize that the response times people were seeing before just weren't working. And when you need ambulances in rural Alberta, you need them coming quickly. You can't have them, and it's very difficult flexing all over the place. And so, we are looking to try to find solutions to this. I don't think it's just a money issue, but in terms of dealing with response times and ambulances, I think we're very, very aware of the need and the frustration of the past and looking to change things so that we don't find ourselves with communities that have access to ambulance. And I kind of hope that answers your question. If I did, you can kind of press me on that and kind of go back to the question again, but hopefully that gave you some kind of an answer.
Yeah, there was just some talk of diverting some of the calls to 811. And I don't know where, is that actually occurring? Are we somewhere in the process?
Yeah, sorry. So part of what I just answered, I didn't get the other part because I lost my train of thought briefly. So they're also looking at giving more assessment of capability to first responders on the scene. And the reason for that is once someone, as I understand it, once someone calls 911, they get an ambulance out there, they have to take them into the hospital. Whereas now they're looking at saying, well, you don't need to go to the hospital. We can, give you the bandage or on the spot or whatever it is to treat you there. Also, if things are non-emergent, going to 811 to try to alleviate some of the congestion. So yes, they are looking at these options, and so that we aren't finding ourselves with ambulances stacked up at hospitals with things that aren't emergent. And an example of this, I guess, if I could go into the personal experience with that, had something happen with this about 3 or 4 years ago with my own son who had flu-like symptoms but had some breathing issues, so I took him to the hospital in Edmonton where we were over Christmas break at that time. And the whole emergency room was just filled with sick kids who there were, there didn't seem to be any broken bones or lacerations, or you just kind of kids with the flu. And then there was about 3 or 4 ambulance teams that were there as well with kids in minorities who seemed to have the flu, right? And so that's 4 teams right there that were pulled off the streets. And so we're looking at trying to move some people out of the emergency rooms, or not have to bring them in if they don't need to come in. So how that works is a little more complex, and I don't have the answers for that fully, because when you start getting down the rabbit hole of healthcare, and it gets pretty complex pretty quickly. But from a high-level perspective, yes, we do see that there's a way to alleviate some of the stress in emergency rooms and even doing first responders by looking at the better option they would want is being done.
Thank you.
Great. Is there any further questions? If there's not, thank you very much for your time tonight and taking the time to be with us even from your car, which is excellent. We really appreciate that you were able to do that.
Well, I was looking around my car to make sure that there no food in the ceiling for my kids throwing spaghetti. I remember getting spaghetti on the roads, like hamburgers and something. It's clean enough, presentable enough to be here, otherwise I have to be out on the road. But all kidding aside, thank you for accommodating me. I really enjoyed visiting with you and other municipalities. It's a great way to connect with you and know the local issues, and then try to follow up and pretty as fast as I can with questions and have the answers to. So thank you for all you do, and of course you always know that should something come up afterwards and you get a chance to ask or want to chat offline, I will make myself available to you. But just know that I'll always be on the road and talking to you as I drive. Answer you, of course.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, have a great night.
All right, take care. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, so we do have another group that will be joining us shortly. STARS is coming to give us an update. And just for clarification, they are coming in person. Yes. However, since they're not here yet, maybe if you're okay with it, we'll just continue down the agenda, if that works for everybody. Okay. So we'll move on now. The only thing that we have left on here is just some administrative reports and our council reports and some correspondence. So we'll move right into 8.1, which is the Chief Administrative Officer report. And so we do have that in front of us. Thank you very much for providing that. And I'm just going to open it up to council if there are any questions on that report. And if there's none, you can. Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Sorry. No, I just want to say thank you for the well-written and shared update on the motions. I appreciate the information sharing back to council, but ultimately to the public on these motions of council and the work that is being completed, and to stay informed on the progress of the work of council. But it's also just really cool to see it laid out in readable terms, because I think sometimes motions can be hard to read and confusing language. So I thought that was really awesome to include in the report. And of course, I'm very happy to have Carlene doing research on the defining anti-Semitism motion. So looking forward to having that back. I just had one question about the hiring through Mayor Martina to the CEO. Because we talked about the last time with the development officer. So, sorry, what does this mean for the people who have applied for the community development position? And are we going to lose individuals in the kind of the waiting queue?
Thank you. No, everybody that has reached out to me or has sent an application has been advised that the deadline was extended. It was extended in order to accommodate the new CEO. Now that it's been announced that Sean Patience will be starting in May, Sean will actually be participating in the process. In fact, all the CVs we collected up until when it closed at 4:30 on Friday will be sent to Sean. He'll go through a review. And then we'll shortlist or create an interview list and then move from there. So we'll jointly end up doing the interviews. Development officer position has been extended to April 14th. So
two that we had received prior. Both have been advised that it's been extended, and we've not heard anything back, positively or negatively from that.
Awesome, thank you, appreciate it.
If I can add two verbal, if there are no further questions. First, as members of council are aware, but just for the public's edification, Ms. Betteridge has spent a good part of 2 full days, if not more. I've walked by council chambers and she's been muttering, so I'm assuming there's been more work. Trying to integrate all the technology, update what we had here, and then upgrade the sense of combining technology so that, as we know, we were able to see MLA Scout through Zoom, so if a member of council is unable to attend in person, the public can now see that as well. The sound needs to be integrated. What is appearing on the screen can now also appear on YouTube. So it's a much more transparent process for the public. This again is part of council's directive and direction. So if you can pat yourselves on the back, as long as everything works well. If it doesn't work well, that's on your CAO. Absolutely. Especially after May 1st. The second thing for your notice, and certainly for the public as well, is that starting on April the 11th, we will be undertaking some renovations in Town Hall. We're taking the CAO office and dividing it in half. We're capturing a little bit from the office beside it as well to make 3 offices. The primary intent is to move the development officer forward, and he or she, the new employee, will actually be seated with an access from the entry area. So people will actually be able to access the development officer right from entry into the building. With the south quarter coming on, with the growth and development that the town is seeing, it's actually going to be a great level of service that the town will provide people having to feel right there. There will be some internal movement as well in order to accommodate the new position coming on, Council's Director of the Coordinator of Community Development. So we still have space for at least 2, if not 3 more future offices, and then at that point it's time to think about something different. But you've got a couple weeks for that. We're trying to have everything done by May 1st for CAO patience and his arrival. So it will be quick, but it will be noisy, it will be a little bit messy as well. So we apologize certainly to council and anybody in the community that it's going to be inconvenienced by that, but we're trying to keep everything off to one side.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I saw that we're doing street sweeping, but it ended this week, and I was wondering what how will we be notifying residents? I guess is there anything I guess besides the sign or
The sign is the only thing that we have out there. I did ask the Director of Operations if we put up little sandwich boards or anything like that. He said no. So we will make sure that it remains posted on the sign. In fact, we could probably fix the sign tomorrow afternoon so that it's a reminder, constant reminder to people. We would just ask, because I don't know what the weather is supposed to be. I don't think Environment Canada knows what the weather is supposed to be on Thursday and Friday. We just ask people to park off the road just in case it can get out there. If not, it will be bumped more than likely to next week. But again, we'll have to update that through signage.
all right, thank you.
Other questions?
Sorry, I just have one last comment, just on the last point here for the motion, administrative policy for the donation of facilities and groups. So I just wanted for it to be clear that as this motion is written, and as it is an admin policy, so that this won't come back to council for approval. So rather, it'll just be completed and adopted by admin only.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then I guess I would just like to add, if I may, for consideration only, not as formal motion, that the policy maybe include parameters for the donation of space for hall storage for community groups as well.
At a cost. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? If not, can I get a motion to accept the report? Go ahead.
I move to accept the CAO report for information.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. All right, so we're gonna now just go back up to our delegations here. So today we have, Glenda Farndon, if I said your name correctly, and Martin Ebel. Perfect, right, from STARS here to be with us today to give us an update. So please come forward, you can take a seat here if you'd like. And Carlene does have your presentation up for you on the screen. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and welcome. Thank you for coming to see us.
Thank you so much. We're very pleased to be here and work with your council and bring you information. So this is a prime opportunity to finally get to meet all of you. And so we thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
We'll stay on the first slide for just a moment here. I just would like to draw your attention to the fact that maybe I should do introductions first though again, just maybe a little bit background just so you'll know. So I am the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison for STARS. I've been working with municipalities across the entire province for 17 years now. And more to come on that for you as well. And Martin is the Southern Alberta liaison. So Martin, you want to give them a little bit of background?
Sure. My name is Martin Abel, as introduced, and I grew up in Lethbridge. Lived most of my life here with some periods away, and I do have a bit of a background in municipal administration. First with the town of Fort Macleod. Ironically enough, I know that Sean Patience is coming here to be the new CEO. That coincided with when he was mayor of Fort Macleod, so I worked with him then. And then more recently, I worked for Lethbridge County, both Fort Macleod and Lethbridge County as Economic Development Officer. And then last year, this opportunity opened up with STARS, and so since early July, I've been with STARS. So that's kind of my story, and I'm still working out of Lethbridge.
Okay, so he's ideally co-located.
Yeah.
So on the beginning here though, after 38 years of serving Albertans, STARS is now going through a bit of a rebrand. So you'll notice a little bit different logo there. And we also, been known all these years, our vision has been saving lives. And we've remained a charitable entity for all 38 years, meaning that there is no charge to the patient. That's a prime example. And that's because of partnership. And so now our new vision is to hone in on that piece of saving lives and providing critical care anywhere. So we will further enhance, the different ways that we are utilizing and moving forward as we do. So next slide, please. So STARS is fueled by generosity. So previously we have had a 10-year affiliation agreement with Alberta Health Services for 20% government funding. That expired in 2020, and we've been year to year during the COVID years since then. Now last spring they had made an announcement that they would look at 50% government funding in Alberta, which would align Alberta government with what we're already receiving from Saskatchewan government, as well as even higher rate in Manitoba. So with that, at the end of the year, I'm very happy to announce that we did receive a little top-up that would put them to 50% funding. Now we are in very high-level discussions to see whether or not we can secure another long-term 10-year service agreement, which we again already have with Saskatchewan and Manitoba governments. So more yet to come on that. On the expenditure side, the orange and blue represents more than 3/4 of all expenditures are aviation and medically related. The smaller piece is our dispatch center out of Calgary, the Emergency Link Center. And this is the 4th year in a row that we have remained for base operations and administration costs at 12%. CRA allows up to 35% for administration costs for charitable entities. So we very much feel that we continue to do our due diligence in this area. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a little bit of a map to kind of show you across Alberta as well as into northeastern BC, where we have a very strong connection, Everything that you see green is a municipal annual supporter of STAR services. So we're very much starting to bring all of Alberta together, more than 90% now, and we're building on regional partnerships as well, which means that towns and villages that lie within the county or MD's boundaries are also municipal supporters, along with partnering with their county or their municipal district. So we're certainly building on that. They're either on a fixed rate or a per capita rate. We have just added 5 new rural municipalities as well as 5 new urban municipalities onto our annual municipal initiative program. So currently, we just now welcomed Lethbridge County and Town of Pitcher Butte, which is also in your very remote or a regional area here. Since 1992, they have been supporting STARS. So we do have some long-term partnerships. Together, this program is to ensure that we all have access to a robust health and safety network as we move forward. Currently, collectively, we're generating just over $2 million annually in support for STARS services. There's 8 municipal leaders now that are represented on the helicopter. Those are in the red boxes. We just 2 weeks ago welcomed Sturgeon County that they crossed a $500,000 threshold and now have their logo on the helicopter. And we have 2 more upcoming logo unveilings this spring as well. So it is very much a united effort of everyone working together. Next slide, please. Martin.
All right. So kind of a good question after Glenda's kind of given the provincial overview is what's been happening in the greater Lethbridge area, in this area. So we have some statistics here for Lethbridge County, and you notice here that, there's a number of municipalities within there, and it's averaging, a total of 16 over the last 5 years. Now, you might be wondering, you might think, well, that's not really that much, and not only that, we're not seeing Coalhurst represented here. And there's a reason for that. A lot of transportation in this area, if it's a critical case, will go first by ground ambulance to the Lethbridge Hospital, and then from Lethbridge Hospital will be transported, if required, by STARS to Calgary, usually. So if we could go to the next slide here. Here you see those stats, kind of what I was leading into. So you'll see that it's averaging about 67 missions to the Lethbridge Hospital every year. It's one of the busiest destinations for STARS here. And so within that number, there would be some Coalhurst residents included, and we'll talk about that just a little bit. But it's certainly not one of those cases that, STARS is only in the big cities or, in other parts of Alberta. STARS is very active here in southern Alberta. And again, sometimes going directly to scenes, but often going to the helipad at the Lethbridge Regional Hospital and making the pickups from there. Next slide.
Next slide, please. So this is information that's been 10 years in the making. We're very excited to start to bring this information forward, especially to our municipalities, because it directly affects your residents. And so on this particular slide, what we were able to do, and as I said, we've been working on this for 10 years, is utilize patient postal code. No other patient information, only the postal code where they lived at the time they were flown by STARS. So taking that into consideration, since 2010, for all of the municipalities that lie within Lethbridge County and area boundaries, now you can see that there's been 511 residents that since 2010 that have been flown by STARS. Next slide, please. More interestingly enough is these red dots represent the areas where all of those residents had traveled and needed STARS. So now you can see that across several provinces, 3 provinces, and 5 different STARS bases across these 3 provinces have all flown those 511 residents that lie within the Lethbridge County boundaries. It's important to understand that your residents have access to STARS across Western Canada. We have 6 bases starting from Winnipeg to Saskatoon, Regina, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Calgary. With the exception of Winnipeg, all of those other bases have served residents in this area, including 12 residents from Coalhurst. So certainly this is a testament to the value of our partnership and how we can work together to ensure a health and safety network. Next slide, please.
So earlier, Glenda was mentioning that we have the Emergency Link Center at the Calgary base, and it's kind of like the dispatch center, not only for STARS, but for all of our critical care partners. So that includes dispatch for Alberta Health Service fixed wing, for ground ambulance, and also for some other helicopter medical services such as HALO. So we actually dispatch the HALO helicopters for southeastern Alberta. So this is a very busy center. They receive an average of 99 emergency requests every day, which when you do the math and you crunch the numbers, winds up to over 36,000 emergency requests per year. So it's very important. That's for all of the provinces. So where the bases are, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then into southeast and northeast BC. Next slide, please. And one thing that is also really a key at our Emergency Link Center is our transport physicians. So sometimes, about 25% of our missions, the physician will actually be on board the helicopter, but sometimes, often they are not. The majority of the time they are not. But thanks to the modern technology, satellite link, Bluetooth, and internet, every one of our missions, there is a physician virtually present. And these physicians operate out of the Emergency Link Center. So even, there's always a flight nurse and a flight paramedic in the back, but the the transport physician can be there at that time providing care, even if they're not physically present. So that's what you see here in this image. They give virtual consultation and guidance. They're also available to rural clinics and rural hospitals as well. Next slide, please.
Virtual reality program.
There's a good example of an area where it's making a huge difference right there. So one thing that we're really excited about is our new fleet of Airbus H145 helicopters. We just took the delivery of the 10th and final helicopter last fall, so the fleet is completely renewed and also completely paid for, funded and paid for. So we're really excited about that. So the Airbus H145 is really a generational investment. It should last us well over 3 decades. That's what our old BK-117s served us very well, but it was time to move on. So they have improved speed, range, and safety factors, improved avionics. They still have the twin engines, which is very important. A helicopter cannot land at a hospital without twin engine. That's a requirement from Transport Canada, safety requirement, so the H145 has that. They also have the improved safety features. I'll just draw your attention, if you look on the image on the right there, you'll see that the tail rotor is enclosed. That's a fenestron tail. And so it's just safer when the helicopter lands at a scene. You don't have the open spinning rotor as ground personnel, emergency service personnel are moving around. It's enclosed there in that fenestron tail. So this is another improvement that technology has made and allows there for that. Interestingly enough, since 2002, STARS was the first civilian service actually, to operate with night vision goggles, to be certified for night vision goggles. So since that time, we've been able to fly 24/7. We don't have to limit our operations, our missions to daylight hours. We can fly even when it's dark. And as we know, a day has 24 hours, so approximately half of the missions are flown after dark. And those night vision goggles allow for that capability, that capacity. Next slide, please. So in addition to having the great helicopters, these H145s, It's what's in the back that makes them really special. And it really is each helicopter having an airborne intensive care unit on board. So we'd just like to take a moment and talk a little bit about what does that mean and what is some of the equipment that's back there. So one of the things that we have is called a handheld iStat lab. And that is something that takes blood, a few drops of the patient's blood, and analyzes it in under 2 minutes, determines what blood gases are there, and then allows the flight paramedic and flight nurse to make a determination of what pain management drugs should be administered. So instead of just kind of guessing or kind of thinking, oh, well, what about this, what about that, what do we do? It can provide very quickly the precise recommendation, or give the information that allows them to make a precise determination of what pain management drugs they should need. And of course, if it's a critical care patient, pain management drugs are probably very critical to their care. Next slide, please.
So in addition, we also have the Hamilton T1 ventilator. So this is a fully featured ICU ventilator, just like what you would find in the intensive care units in the hospital, except this is especially made for transport systems only. And better yet, it also accommodates all sizes of patients, so adult, pediatric, even neonatal. So another important factor for us. We always carry 2 units of universal blood. This is blood that can be accepted by any one of us. STARS is very proud of our innovation in being the very first helicopter EMS program in North America to bring this life-saving measure on board, and it has literally been the difference between life and death for many patients that we have transported. In fact, I was just getting a notification while we were en route here that they're headed to an area just east of here and needing a patient that needs a specialist, and so the transport physician was going to be going as well, and they needed to bring blood as well because that patient was requiring it so that they could get this patient back to a specialist in Calgary. So right there, we know that it is making a significant difference. The video laryngoscope, now you can see on the screen there, our crews can actually visually view the trachea. This is an important factor when our crews are managing very difficult airways. For such patients as a trauma patient, possibly a burn patient, maybe someone that's been crushed on impact. It's really vital that we can intubate effectively, immediately, first time for someone that can no longer breathe for themselves. Next slide, please. Now the Easy IO drill, this has been around for quite a while. We've utilized this quite a bit. It's really effective and very important, especially in time-sensitive, life-threatening situations. This allows us, it's just a very tiny, small handheld drill, allows us to drill into a shoulder bone or a leg bone and immediately start an IV. You can imagine when you're managing a critical patient, you don't have time to be searching for a vein and all of that. You need to start the pain management and stabilization immediately. You'd be quite surprised how many times we actually have to use this piece of equipment. The handheld ultrasound, now this is brand new as well. This provides test results for the rapid diagnosis of collapsed lungs, any kind of trauma-related internal bleeding, heart abnormalities, even fetal compromise in ill or injured pregnant mothers. This way, we can determine what we are dealing with, identify and diagnose these particular types of situations. And now, with the way the new helicopters are equipped with integrated Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and satellite connectivity, once we have these results while we're airborne en route, we can actually transmit in real time the test results to the receiving doctors at the receiving hospital so they can expedite their treatment plan. So as soon as the patient arrives at the hospital, they go directly into trauma surgery, neurosurgery, cardiac cath lab, any of those types of scenarios. And we still have our transport physicians, again, working on the back end in the Emergency Link Center to help coordinate all of this, and schedule a neurosurgeon or whatever the case may be. So all of this is also going on in the background. And the physicians then have these test results in order to determine what is necessary for a treatment plan. We always carry a plethora of pain management drugs as well, including thrombolytics, which is required for a stroke patient. Now, we do have agreements with all of the hospitals that are on stroke protocol across Western Canada. So we can alert them that we are en route with a query stroke patient, have that patient go in immediately to the cath lab for a CAT scanner so that they can determine whether it's the proper type of stroke that requires the thrombolytic drugs. And then we can apply that, and in many cases, reverse all symptoms, and that patient can, return to normal work and not have residual effects. It's a vital aspect. As Martin had said, about 25% of our calls, there is a transport physician that will fly, so that there is physician-to-physician consultation, especially with rural hospitals. So we carry a physician's kit that includes the central venous catheterization lines, as well as even a temporary pacemaker if there needs to be a quick insertion in order to stabilize a heart patient while en route to the cardiac cath lab. So that's just a small example of some of the really highly specialized equipment on board. Next slide, please.
So we've been able to tell you a little bit about the helicopters we fly and how well equipped they are in the back. But as is often the case, it's the people that make the difference. And we have top-notch crews, and we know we have top-notch crews. There's always 2 pilots on board for safety reasons, as well as a flight nurse and a flight paramedic. But how do we know that they're top-notch? Well, every year STARS holds a very competitive competition of all of the flight nurses and flight paramedic teams across all the bases, and to determine the top ones. And those 2 are sent to the Air Medical Transport Conference, which is an annual conference bringing together emergency air medical transport teams from around the world, primarily North America and Europe, but from other countries as well from time to time. And there they have a simulation competition where they give a very complex scenario, and all the teams present have to go head to head, and they get judged and scored while the scenario is going on, how they handle it. And since STARS has been attending for the last 20 years, we have always finished in the top 3 over those 20 years. And 7 out of 21 times, including most recently in 2022, the STARS team was the top team. So again, keep in mind, they're going up against the best in the world, and they're consistently top 3, 7 times top 1. So we are extremely proud. You look here on this slide, we've got our 2022 team, first place. They're getting their award, the recognition right there, Kevin Easton and Chris Fay. We're incredibly proud of them, and we're incredibly proud of the high standards that they have. Next slide, please.
So in closing, I want to just say that STARS was born out of necessity. This is Kelly Waldron. She was the very first STARS patient flown in 1985. She was a critically ill newborn out of Lethbridge County area. She radically changed the delivery of critical care across Alberta and now Western Canada. Today, we have flown more than 55,000 missions, more importantly, at no cost to the patient because of partnerships. A life is literally saved every day. We average 10 missions per day across the 6 bases. A life is saved every day. And it's partnership that has always made it possible for almost 40 years. So we welcome the town of Coalhurst to join our municipal partners across the province. And our request to you as a partner is to consider a $1 per capita per year contribution to STARS to help offset significant costs that we fly in your area. As Martin has said, that Lethbridge Hospital and area is a significant place that we come almost every other day. And so partnership, again, is the key to it all. So we're asking this in conjunction with your council term through 2025. Please consider joining our partnerships across the province. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to council if there's any questions. No? All good?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's been years, yeah.
Did you want to make a comment?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, thank you for your presentation. I just want to say it's great. I've been to tour the Stars helicopter before, and it's taking my kids and stuff. It's a very good service that's provided. So, thank you for coming.
Have you seen the new helicopter?
I haven't seen the new one yet, no, so I should take a look.
Is this an invitation for us to go to look at it?
Well, you never know.
Can we sit in the seats inside of it?
Absolutely. If you would all like to make your way to Calgary, we certainly would. We did have a couple other town councils that have come, and we preserved a time frame for them to come and to see the helicopter and sit in it and meet the crew. And so if that is something that you would like to consider, we certainly welcome that.
One day, not having small children anymore, I don't get to climb and things like that. Or fire trucks, or, you know.
Councilor Flores, did you have?
Thank you. No, I just want to say thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the work that you do and the passion that you have for this. It was wonderful to hear what's happening out there and what STARS is doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We feel it's important. I think everybody is familiar with the red helicopter. Sometimes you even see it flying over, but there's so much more to it. I mean, that's a very visual thing, but you know, for everybody to kind of understand what's going on and what some of the numbers are associated kind of can be eye-opening. So, you know, again, we do appreciate your time.
That's excellent, yeah. Thank you very much. You had a great presentation, and I echo what Councilor Flores said, with your passion, you can definitely see that. And so how long have you said you've been with STARS?
17 years.
There you go. The passion's still there.
Yes, absolutely it is. I'm considered I'm from Grand Prairie, so I'm considered the mother of the base. I'm the only one left that actually started the base in Grand Prairie.
Wow.
To serve northern residents.
Yeah.
So I am very passionate about it because, like southern and northern Alberta, they mirror each other, and we have the same challenges, and we have the same remoteness and a lot of agriculture and industry, right, where this is really necessary. So it still shines through, I guess. I hope.
Great.
I still feel very strongly about it.
No, that's amazing.
It does, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming to join us today. Again, really appreciate your presentation. It was fantastic.
Okay, well, we hope you will consider our request.
Yes, thank you.
And I brought you a new STARS calendar.
Oh, excellent.
Some great news stories in there and the latest newsletter, but I'd like to draw your attention to the back as well, that after 38 years, we flew our record mission. So the longest mission in 38 years. So quite an interesting story.
Awesome.
And I'll leave Martin Swamp, because he is your local representative here that can work with you, and we look forward to the opportunity to bring you annual updates each year.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Have a great night.
You as well, thank you. And thank you very much for your assistance. Okay, if you should have any questions, additional questions or anything, then please just contact Martin and we'll get whatever additional information that you need.
I'm literally down the road. So.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. So we'll just go with that. So there has been a request put forward to us, and so I'm not sure if anyone would like to make a motion on that at this point, or if we'd like to accept this for information and consider that at a future date. So I'll leave it to you all. Okay.
I move that we accept the STARS update as information.
Excellent, thank you. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, So move back down to administration reports, and move to 8.2, so the council inquiry. So, Councillor Florence, you had this inquiry from our last council meeting, I believe it was, regarding the FCSS requisition, and we do have this information. Is there any questions on this information? If there's none, do we make a motion to accept this information? Yes, we do. Excellent. Who would like to do that?
All right, I do.
Okay.
I move the accept information accept for information, the FCSS requisition and administrative response as presented.
Any discussion on that?
Is it just one thing, sorry?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for the response to this inquiry, for going through the inquiry process. This was very, very interesting, and I like the way of seeking information and sharing information. I know I said that earlier. And then as far as the answer to the inquiry with the 2% impact, seeing that number of 445, knowing that it's not going to be a huge impact, is very helpful for me, and hopefully with our contribution and the other municipalities' contribution, that it can make a big impact for FCSS. So thank you for this information.
Great, thank you. All right, so we will move on. Oh, we have to vote. Forgot about that part. All in favor?
Oh, sorry.
That is carried, thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Now we'll move on. We'll move on to our council reports. I'm going to start with Deputy Mayor Poetry.
Thank you, Mayor Martina. I would like to recognize a few things, a few people in the town. I would like to recognize Coalhurst Dental for opening up. We have a new business, right? That's great. And I'd also like to recognize that our new CAO was announced, which was mentioned already. And then again, recognize the provincial government for providing 2 grants for us for the last 2 weeks, which were mentioned earlier. Emily Scow was here. And just highlight, I guess, that it was just over $4,500 we received for fire services training, and $200,000 for the Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaboration grant. So that's a great news for our community. As for meetings, I attended last March 22nd. I attended the Recreation and Culture Committee with Councillor Caldwell, and we received a presentation from for food security solutions that use self-serve small pantries, similar to like a mini library, like those mini libraries we have. We had one of the members of that board from the Raymond organization, and then of course we had our member from Coalhurst, our FCSS member, Jillian, present to us. And the one in Raymond is kind of a larger scale one. They're building actually a whole shed because they've had such good success with that. Raymond is interesting because they're only a little bit larger than us. A few hundred, about 500 people more, 600 or something like that. They're not hugely larger than us right now, but they saw a need for providing food security in their region, and they used this as a way to try and do that. And it was a citizen initiative that it was funded. It wasn't through the town. So, but the presenter, he was a former councillor, I guess. So really, I provided a link in the report that you can see their free pantry.ca. You can see how it works. And they don't just do food; they do all sorts of things. And so, a few members of the Recreation Culture Committee were really gung ho on this, and so we might see something coming forward to council in the future on that. And then just the regular meetings on the 27th and 8th, Jen Steady and Committee of the Whole. Next couple weeks, we have the FCSS Regional Council. I think most of council is going to that. Jen Steady Committee, and then I have the Coalhurst Executive meeting on the 13th. And then, of course, the CPA conference. That's my report.
Great, thank you. Any questions from anyone?
I have a question. Just about the rec and culture meeting and the free little pantries. Last time you had talked about it from Raymond, that it was somebody from community services coming. I thought it was more like a what they were doing for recreation in Raymond. But it's interesting to hear about this, and I'm glad that FCSS is at the table because they have done and led a few of these initiatives for the free little pantries, including in Nobleford. I think that there's also other local groups in Coalhurst and local people that are interested in doing this kind of initiative. And I do wonder if it's something that the town should be doing, or as you mentioned, like if it should be run by more of a local person. So I look forward to something coming back from the committee and it being a committee of council. That's hopefully something they can provide more direction on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, one comment we asked them was like, well, it's hard to find volunteers sometimes in a small town, right?
Totally.
And he had mentioned, for this, they've never had any problems finding volunteers.
Yeah, totally.
Because people care about this type of thing, that they just are willing to, they had a group of about 30 volunteers and they each take a week or a couple weeks to look at it, restocking it. It was not a huge burden on the community members.
Yeah, I think if I was there as well, can I just add on to that update as well? But the big players at the table also were the different community groups and organizations, and they sort of took turns overseeing it. And as well, we had a presentation not just from Raymond, but also from our local youth and crew facilitator, Jillian, who did support the initiative both in Coalville and in Nobleford. And so it gives that opportunity to be able to explore both models and see if we can find something that's sort of like a meeting Coalhurst, I guess, right? From the both. But yeah, this is just sort of that initial gathering of information. And then it comes forward to see, I think you're right. There's tons of community groups that would be very interested in stepping into this with us. For sure.
Great, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Caldwell.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, I'm talking, right?
There we go, I know, right?
Thank you. I don't think I need to speak too much more on that. You spoke about that very well. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's right. But I did have a few recognitions. I wanted to recognize Green Acres Foundation for providing safe, high-quality housing for our seniors. We did receive a satisfaction survey, or we did receive a 2022 report to community, and within that, I wanted to just point out some of these fantastic numbers in their satisfaction survey. 100% satisfaction with staff, 99% of the respondents expressed feeling safe, and 96% said they feel at home. And those numbers have stayed consistent over the past few years, which just adds to the sort of the awe to, I guess, the wow factor. I also want to just point out, and I attached the report to community to this as well, because I hope community members read it, because 4 years running Best of the Best in seniors housing, and that's not in just affordable seniors housing, that is in seniors housing across the board within the city of Lethbridge. So also, was it 17 people that we celebrated birthdays? I should pull the report up myself. I'm going to quote it. I can't just pull it off of my memory, darn it. This was a really cool number, so I'm just going to pull this one out here. The number of residents that enjoyed either their 100th birthday or greater in the Green Acres Lodge, and that number was 17. That's crazy, right? I mean, people are really living longer, and there's all kinds of quotes in there, people talking about how much they love being there, and it's just really revitalized them. And, I would encourage everybody to join their Facebook page. They often have videos of seniors in there, like one of the ladies up there that she's over 100 years old and she's in there showing lawn bowling and they're kicking people's butts. I'm telling you, it makes me very hopeful. Okay, anyways, I will go back. I could talk about this for a long time, but I won't. I will just go back to my report here and I hope that you all read it. I also wanted to acknowledge and recognize 2 members of our Coalhurst Recreation and Culture Committee Sienna Beagle and Stephanie Karsten. They successfully applied for a grant to celebrate Coalhurst volunteers.
It's short notice, yeah.
Yeah, it was very short notice. They volunteered their time and they just shot that thing out and got it out for those grant funds. Meetings and events that I attended the Green Acres Foundation Executive Committee. We spent some time going through our audited financials with a great clean report, updates on our building projects, and exploring government relations. I, of course, took part in the council meet with our new incoming CAO, Sean Patience. Of course, our committee of the whole meeting, where we spent a period of time learning more about our land use bylaws and tweaking them a bit. Green Acres Foundation board meeting. And I won't speak too much more about the Coalhurst Rec and Culture Committee. You spoke about that quite well, about the presentations on the little community pantries. But I did want to say we also had some discussion on volunteer appreciation and what that might look like. And then today I attended the public town hall put on by the Ministry of Public Safety and Emergency Services. I'll just speak very quickly on that. I went feeling hopeful that we would sort of talk about some of the challenges around 911 and the conversations that they were having about diverting some of the calls to 811. And I had some concerns about that, and I'm hoping that we continue the conversations. I had some concerns because from what I'm hearing, it sounds as though a person makes a call, the person on the other end of the line assesses whether that call, there should be an ambulance or they should be directed to 811, which of course is an information hotline that they can talk to you about your symptoms and things like that. I wanted to have some understanding about, the caliber, the quality of the person, what would their ability to make that assessment in a quick, panicked, 30-second phone call. I had more questions about that, but unfortunately we didn't spend time talking about there was a lot of conversation about the new Alberta policing model, and I was surprised to find that I didn't realize that would be coming from the Ministry of Public Safety as well. But that was what that's what the conversation today took place. Something really good did just kind of pop out of that, though, is that, and I'm not sure that we do qualify, but there is going to be a transition grant that's going to be introduced to different municipalities for them to be able to do an independent study to see what kind of policing model works best in their communities. Yeah, and then they're going to, there was some conversation about the contract, the RCMP contract in 2032 that's coming up. And it sounds as though they're saying at this point that's really our end goal, is that they want to have conversations to ensure that they're providing the right police force for us by the time that contract comes up. Yeah, there was a little bit of a conversation about the sheriffs, the $27.3 million rollout to the sheriffs, for sheriffs, to sort of augment and support the RCMP. But yeah, not a lot of information about what that looked like in the rural area versus in the larger centers. And I think basically, in the interest of time, I think I'll just leave it at that for now. Those were just the big jump outs.
Great, thank you.
Upcoming meetings, everybody spoke about the April 5th All Council Gathering. I'll also be attending a CMHC webinar on their Housing Accelerator Fund, just to explore if Coalhurst is eligible for some funding for a senior housing, sort of community housing project, just to get some feelers in. And April 26th, Picture Butte is hosting us in a council meet and greet, and I look forward to that as well. Other updates, as I said, our two volunteers on the Coalhurst Rec and Culture did secure a volunteer appreciation grant, and they're going to be working on all the fine details for, so I believe an April 16th gathering was the date that was determined, right? So I don't want to have too much more conversation on what that looks like, because some of the plans might change, but the goal is to really get it out to the community to be able to nominate people for a whole spectrum of volunteerism, from your neighbors that are shoveling your walks through to sort of within our community organizations. And that's going to get rolled out. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry, I have two questions. So one on the policing thing, just a clarification on that, because in the announcement with the sheriff funding, it was talked about that it was very clear that the province hadn't made determination on whether they would roll out the Alberta Provincial Police Service or not. So it's interesting that so much of that conversation evolved around that with the minister, and I was just wondering if you could clarify if it was that was in fact the case, that they were not, that had not made a decision yet.
They did state very clearly that no decision has been made at the very beginning of this meeting. But they did talk about the transition grant, and they talked about municipalities sharing with them what would be the best model for them. They did spend quite a bit of time talking about that, and talked about just how crime is changing, and they shared stories of events where crime is changing, and so there was a lot of a conversation around that, very similar to a previous public town hall meeting that I've gone to, when they were actually advocating strongly for that. So I was a little disappointed, as I said. I really thought that there would be conversations about emergency services, because that's really I think that's the big concern right now for municipalities, right? But they were the ones in the driver's seat, and that was their town hall. So
thank you for clarifying. And then I guess my second question is for both of the people on the Rec and Culture Committee, because I think it's great that the committee applied for this grant, and hopefully is successful in that. Maybe just clarification on, as this is a committee of council, then technically this is council's appreciation event, and how will that play out, right? Or with a short timeline, I know that council wasn't able to approve it or work with them, or however that would have looked, but what is it like, how does that look?
I'm talking process.
Just in general, right? Because of the committee, the council committee, the Rec and Culture Committee is putting on this event. Technically, it's council in the town of Coalhurst that's putting on this event, and the committee is doing the work. Technically, it should be council directing the committee what work to do, and I appreciate that it's a tight timeline, and this is the way it went out, and honestly, I'm glad it's happening, because I think it's important to do. Pre-COVID, there was many plans in the works for volunteer stuff, and I think it's something that's much needed, especially after that long break, right? But yeah, just that relationship with the committee and with council in regards to the work that the committee is doing.
Thank you for that, and that's why I'm not speaking on any details. There's just sort of ideas floating around. I think what you say is very important. I think that when they start to solidify sort of some of the ideas around what we need to do, but again, of course, it's a very short turnaround. It will be forward to us, and I don't think it will be within the next council meeting, but perhaps we can have some conversation about it at the next committee of the whole. Because you're right, it's a very short turnaround. There wasn't a lot of conversation about volunteer appreciation, but this grant showed up. That had to be completed by the next morning, and at that time we thought, you know what, let's just go for it, and then we'll sort of go through the process.
If we win.
If we get it. And so we were successful with it. But you're right, process, we have to have a clearly defined process, because things like that are going to come up. And so the two members of council that represent council kind of said, you know what, I think for something like this, it's not a lot of money and it's a quick turnaround, we can go for that.
Yeah, the event is, we're looking at the 29th, not the 15th.
Oh, it's not the 16th, it's the 29th, sorry, okay. So the bedtime. So as they sort of get an idea, and we have some conversations about what that can look like, the event, that'll come forward to council for council input and approval.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll go to Council Florence.
Thank you. For recognition, I wanted to give recognition to Coalhurst Volunteer Fire Department. On Monday and over the weekend, we had some really bad roads, and I know that they responded to some MBCs, so thank you for that. And then also to the Coalhurst High School for hosting an awesome career and post-secondary fair on March 23rd. And to a bunch of schools from from other places came in as well. So like Providence and Picture Utah came. So it's very cool that they did that. For previous meetings I attended the Community Futures Monthly Board meeting. That was business as usual. The Committee of the Whole meeting, as mentioned, we talked land use bylaw. And then for upcoming meetings, I have SCSS, we have an all councils meeting. The Highway 3 Touring Development Association, AGM, it's in person in Tabor on April 11th. And then the Policy Bylaw Risk Review Committee is coming up on April 17th as well. So that's an internal committee. And then for other updates, I kind of wrote like a whole story here. I didn't know what to leave and what to not. But anyway, I would like to I'd like to sit on the board for the Highway 320 Development Association. I think it's a great opportunity to continue to sit at a table where there's many different municipal partners from across the province, specifically Southern Alberta and along Highway 3, provincial MLAs and federal MPs as well. With the work being done on Highway 20 and the development of Highway 3 corridor, and with us being right along it, I feel that this would be a great benefit. And so I wanted to get council's input on that. And so I should say also for the board, there's 3 spots available and 4 people have gone for it. So this might not even happen. We have been a member since I think 2021. There was a motion brought forward. So I think whether we're on the board or just on the association, I think that we'll still see similar benefits. As well, if like with the work meeting, if one is sitting on the board of directors, the replacement person would come in as a director as well. So like if we swapped out people. Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to think back to when we just did our most recent policy regarding remuneration, and I know that we had some, and I believe, I just want to make sure that this is kind of in line with that if you want to seek executive positions, like you, you can, right? I believe, I just want to make sure that that's correct, because this isn't one of the regular, or actually is this one of our regularly appointed standing?
As a director?
As a member.
It's ebbed and flowed. Sorry, it's ebbed and flowed over the years. Historically, we became a member again, I believe, in 2021 or 2022. And then, so this is the second, and then last year at our organizational meeting, we again appointed. So it came late, and then this is the second time we've done the membership since this council's been on. That's correct, I think. Maybe.
Great.
You've been a member since October 4th, 2022, for sure.
Okay. So I guess in that case, just kind of wanted to keep the council informed of what's happening.
I think that's great. I think that there's been a lot of work happening in that area lately. And so if that's something that you're passionate about, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And I'm in support of it.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Is there any questions on Councillor Force's report? If
There's a lot of good information in your report.
There's not, we'll go down to Councillor Harkins.
Thank you. So I will try and summarize things. I kind of wrote a little bit of a novel. Don't really have any recognitions for this meeting, but with regards to meetings and events attended, I did attend a municipal energy management webinar that was put on by SouthPro. That was a lunch and learn. That was on March 22nd. And then on March 24th, we had lunch with the new CEO, which I thought was awesome. It was a great chance to get to know him and have him get to know us. Also attended Committee of the Whole. And then on March 30th, I had the Southern Alberta Economic Development Forum and the SouthPro Executive Meeting. So I'll just touch on the SouthPro Executive Meeting right now. We were just looking at our operational plan for next year. Fiscal year end for them is at the end of March or April, I believe. So it's trying to get the plan in place. That'll be put before the entire board at a meeting later this month. As for upcoming events, Wednesdays this month I'll be attending the EOEP course on land use planning. On the 12th to 14th I'll be at the Economic Development Alberta Summit. April 17th I'll be at Policy Bylaw Risk Review Committee. I don't have it on the report, but I'll be attending the All Council meet for FCSS tomorrow. Also, there's going to be another SouthPro quarterly meeting and executive meeting. Dates are to be determined at this point. And then I guess going into the updates. So just a quick note on the municipal energy management webinar. There was a lot of talk about municipal energy managers, which are people that are hired and it's subsidized through MCCAC, and they provide energy savings within municipalities. So there was a couple people that were speaking. There was one from Tabor that was talking about some of the ways that they're saving money by like switching to digital thermostats and retrofitting some of the stuff at the pool and the hockey rink and stuff. So it was just kind of speaking about how small changes can make big impacts over time. So there's a bunch of links that were shared. So I have a lot of them listed in the report here. So if anyone's curious, there's a ton of them that were shared. So it was just kind of a quick 45-minute thing with 3 presentations and then just some question and answer, and then a lot of resources that were shared. And then moving on to the Southern Alberta Economic Development Forum. So this was held in Lethbridge. It's a full day with speakers, breakout sessions, and panel discussions. We had 2 keynote speakers, which were Jack Mintz and Coalhurst. I thought that they were both very informative in what they were sharing. I won't get too much into it, but there's a little bit of information in here for kind of what they talked on. We had breakout session that I attended that was on energy to waste. I know that's something that's come up recently. There was one presenter that was the chair for the Southern Alberta Energy to Waste Association, and then the other person that was presenting was the CEO of Farming Energy, which is a sub-company of a European company that does energy to waste over there. So they're kind of getting their foothold in Alberta. They got a project in Alberta's industrial heartland, which is just east of Edmonton. And then I believe they do have a letter of intent with Innisfail. So they are kind of expanding a little bit. We also had a panel on agri-food tourism market readiness. There was a lot of just kind of verbal case studies and stories. One of the owners of Herbal Apothecary from Lethbridge was there talking about how through life-throwing changes, they ended up starting out with microgreens, and now they have this full holistic food business in Lethbridge, and it's just kind of talking about adapting to market changes and meeting your audience where they're at. And then we had, one of the breakout sessions in the afternoon was talking about collaboration. So they were talking about the Regional Innovation Network of Southern Alberta. So that's kind of like Tech Connect and all those different businesses that all link together to provide services for the community. So they act as kind of an incubator, and they'll help with resource pooling so that everyone can have access to things and try and support one another. I just want to mention this. One of the interesting things that Todd Hirsch spoke about was he was trying to make it personal for the way that he spoke about the economy. So he was comparing it to grade 8 physical education. So he had a very in-depth speech on how picking captains and selecting teams for basketball is a lot like the economy. So there's a few notes that I have in here based on that, but if anyone is curious, they can reach out to me and I can share a little bit more. I don't want to get too carried away because I know there's a lot of information there. So that's pretty much the summary of what I've been up to.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Harmons? All right, so my report. So just to start out with, the recognition that I have this time is just a thank you to our Legislative Services Coordinator, Carleen Betteridge, for her continued support with technology and our new setup that we have today, but also just with really helping us, I guess, with getting the information that we need and having that available to the public as well. And so I think that, whether it's the implementation of our diligent agenda system or whatever that might be, it's been really, really helpful. And so I really do appreciate that. So thank you. In terms of the meetings and events that I attended, I've been doing a little bit of work with Chinook Arch, and again, coming up usually at the beginning of the month, that's when a lot of that happens. So I had the Marketing and Communications Committee meeting on the 22nd. And then obviously we were very happy to announce our new CAO, Sean Patience. Did a little bit of media on the 22nd as well, and met with him. Again, got to know him a little bit better, and yeah, looking forward to having him come on board. And it's funny because as we keep on going to these meetings and seeing people come in, they keep on saying that they know him. So that's really quite interesting to see how many people have that connection to him. And then again, just with our agenda setting committee and committee of the whole last week. My upcoming meetings are just the FCSS meeting tomorrow that we will have in Coalhurst. I'm looking forward to being able to meet with all the other councils within the regions that hopefully will be there as well. And then our Shinnegarch Library Board meeting will be on the 6th. And we will be going, I know, over our audited financial statements at that point in time. So kind of looking forward to that as well. I don't have any other updates at this time, so that's my report. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we'll move back onto our agenda here. I'm just going to go back to it. Right, internet is being a little slow today. Okay, so we'll go here to our correspondence. So we do have a letter from the town of Barrhead regarding community space grant application by Barrhead Wellness Connection. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept this as information?
Sure. I move to accept the letter from the town of Barrhead for information that's submitted.
Excellent, thank you. Any discussion?
I guess, sorry, one thing I did want to say is I wasn't quite sure what they wanted from us because I found it a little confusing. It's titled Space Grant Application and it references changes to an EPR program, which it doesn't really explain what it is. But I think they've lost some sort of funding for newspaper, which I suppose I can agree that the demographic of the individuals who use newspapers are probably seniors and in a minority population. But still, again, I wasn't quite sure what they wanted with this letter. Just to also send a letter, or?
Yeah, I believe that sometimes, like a lot of times, we're always copying on these in case we want to join in on the costing.
Okay. Well, then I just leave the motion as just accepted.
Okay.
Sorry. Backspace.
So we'll call question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. Now we'll look down to, we have two letters from Minister Schultz. So the first is the ministerial order on the joint use partnership agreement. Is that what
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The JUPA, as it is called here. And so we do have the ministerial order on that. And I guess because they are related, can they be accepted as one package? Yes, okay. Okay, so we do have the ministerial order and then we do have the letter, just indicating that there's been an extension till 2025, I do believe. So would somebody like to make a motion to accept those two pieces?
I move that we accept the information from Minister Schultz as submitted. And I had a query, and I know we've been proactive in this in trying to get it resolved by this year in reaching out to the school division to connect with them. I would just like to ask if there's been any follow-up to that from administration. Yeah.
No, thank you for the question. There's been no further communication. This ministerial order certainly helped, but I've not received any further updated communication from Alice on starting or communicating in JUPA. I did speak to Mr. Patience about this last week as part of our update. I believe Diamond Valley has just completed their JUPA with their neighboring school districts. So he's absolutely primed and coming fresh off it, and will happily take this on in May when he arrives.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, thank you. No, I appreciate you bringing that up because I did want to have a little bit of a discussion around this because it's something that Deputy Mayor Poitras has brought up in the past. And so definitely appreciate the extension. Also, with the JUPAs and moving forward, it talks about in the letter about the minister providing support for the development of this agreement if we were required to have it. But as the Deputy Mayor has mentioned, I would like to see Council take a lead on this and get ahead, set up a meeting with Palliser and get it in place, especially given, the modernization project and stuff like that. But also with that, I think it would be good to try to set up with the minister, a meeting with the minister, either by the AM conference or for another date, but to be able to continue to take the lead on this very important initiative and get it done well before the June 2025 deadline. I think that was enclosed. Never mind, I can't bring that one up. But there was a question, and it was a question I was going to ask. I said I closed it to the MLA about the joint use agreement, and who's going to get back about some information about how that would look like with our high school modernization. So I think it would be imperative to get on top of that as soon as possible and get the ball rolling and keep the lead on it, really. So thank you for bringing that up.
Just a follow-up comment on that. I think, we have heard from residents that, we would like to use the gym for X event, but it's been booked for this reason or another, right? So I think alone from the requirement by the ministries here as Mr. Order is to help our residents really have access to community spaces within our community-based part of our strategic plan. So it is a priority. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Excellent. All right, and we don't have a full session or any business arising from that, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn at 7:55. Great.
Thank you. I move that we adjourn the regular meeting of council at 7:55 p.m.
Any discussion? We'll call a question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.